music from Soulfire, a phenomenal band that my guest today plays the bass in, Troy Schneider. Welcome to the podcast, video podcast.
Evan, thanks for having me. Didn't think that was going to be our focus today, but it's great to be here.
Well, the focus today will be on the 16th annual Billington CyberSecurity Summit, taking place September 9 through 11 at the Washington, D.C. Convention Center. Whole idea today is to give folks a preview of what to expect and all the new things that they can see and do when they're at the event.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, your title at Billington is president, and you just received that promotion here in the last couple of months.
Earlier this year, yep.
So you're running the show now.
Well, you know, it's Tom Billington has a thing or two to say about it.
Yeah, sure.
We all have bosses, but yeah, I'm running the business operations for Billington CyberSecurity, and it's a great team.
Yeah, excellent. And just before we jump in, you know, W2 Communications is excited to be a community
We're delighted
partner
to have you. Yeah.
once again, and excited to do that. And then also just a little head nod. Although you're not wearing your bow tie, I've got my bow tie on.
I got the memo.
A little head
and then
nod
forgot.
to George Jackson over at FedGov Today
yeah.
now. And so, George, if you're watching, this is for you, buddy.
I'll wear mine next time, George.
There you go. All right, well, let's just jump right in. So pretty exciting this year because the event has moved from the Ronald Reagan building over to the Washington Convention Center. So kind of a big deal, bigger time. So
bigger,
how many
we
people?
We expect better.
Yeah.
I mean, the Reagan building was great for the last couple of years. Our state-local summit still happens there, but we were just out of room.
Yeah.
And so, so this year it'll be at the Convention Center. It actually sort of sprawling to take over the whole week. We're doing a couple pre-summit engagements on Monday, the 8th, and then the core summit starts on Tuesday the 9th, runs all the way through midday on Friday the 12th. So it's sort of busting at the seams in a good way.
So I know you did a site preview a couple weeks ago. You know, what was that like, and what can people expect? How is it going to be different from the Ronald Reagan? How many people do you expect?
So people first, you know, we'll be in the, you know, the 3,000 to 3,400 people on site overall. We've already got 150 different organizations sponsoring, plus some great community partners. W2 very much among that list. And we'd had the count as of yesterday. I think there's 260 speakers on the various programs across the day.
Wow.
So there's a lot. There's a lot going on. The big difference about being at the convention center rather than at the Reagan building is that you know, almost you know, counterintuitively, it's more compact or less spread out, I should say. You know, we have one big exhibit hall where we had to sprawl across 3 different spaces in the Reagan building, and we can have all the programming and the exhibit and networking space all right next door to one another. So you know, people can come out of the main sessions with our keynote speakers, walk, you know, 20 feet down into the exhibit hall where they can talk to the vendors, they can get a cup of coffee, they can have their meetings. It also, so that's one thing. It is bigger. You know, there's 7 breakout tracks happening on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we have main session programming on Thursday. We've also got a special breakout program on Thursday focused on software supply chain security with Lineage is our key partner on that. And then Friday is devoted to the intersection of AI and cybersecurity. That's the theme for the conference overall, but it's nothing but AI on Friday. There's workshops that are open to all the summit attendees, a couple great speakers, and then we're partnering with Microsoft to do a deep dive and a sort of invite-only CISO session on the intersection of cyber and AI. So lots of different places to kind of pick where you want to go deep in the summit and build the content, you know, tailor your agenda to what you want to talk about.
Sure. A couple of things. One, so you mentioned the attendees. Do you have an idea of the mix of attendees? You know, who's attending?
Sure. So, I mean, our community is public sector cybersecurity. The U.S. federal government's the main focus of that, but we have a pretty strong international contingent at the summit. There are some really smart state and local leaders also taking part in the program. And it's cliche, but cyber is a team sport, and the threats that are out there are not unique to the DoD or to FedCiv.
Sure.
So it's good to get the perspectives from these others in different corners of public sector. So that community includes government and industry. Obviously, our audience is really split almost down the middle, but. When you look at the total attendees and our speaker roster both, it's about 50% government, and the vast majority of that is federal, and then 50% industry with a few academia and nonprofits in there for good measure. And then ours is, everyone is welcome, but it's more of a senior leadership event. The focus is on strategy and running programs, big picture. We don't get as many of the technical practitioners as I would like, frankly. We're looking for ways to make it more engaging, more useful for the people that are actually sort of on the front lines of government cyber efforts, because they're an important part of that bigger conversation. Yeah. But the historic focus of the Billington Summit, and still very much the kind of core persona of who's there, is the person who's running and leading the program, so that it's not exclusively CISOs and CIOs, but they're very overrepresented, and people who are the cyber leads on both the technology side and owning those business responsibilities for the federal companies that are serving the government.
Yeah, great. Well, you hit on it. So, the theme, and of course can't get away from AI, and my question really is, so the theme is cyber and AI frontiers, strategies for a secure and smarter government.
Yep.
My question is what inspired that focus? I think we all kind of know. AI is front and center.
Yeah,
but
I think everyone's contractually required to mention AI.
Yeah, so do you want to dive into that a little bit? How do you see that shaping the program?
Sure.
And that influence?
It's, obviously you can't, just like you can't detangle cybersecurity from government's broader, IT and digital efforts, you can't sort of separate out AI from the cyber conversation at this point.
Right.
It brings new risks. The bad actors are using AI in increasingly creative ways. There are risks that come from AI systems themselves, and ways that bad actors can target them, whether it's sort of poisoning the data set. So there's the risks from AI to government. There's the risks to AI in government.
Right.
And that's been the focus for the last couple of years. What's been really interesting with as the agendas evolved and the conversations have evolved this year, there's a lot more emphasis on AI as a valuable tool in the effort.
Sure.
And everyone had always thought that would be the case, but you're seeing real work happening in government to use AI, for the log analysis side of things, of sort of separating the signal from the noise in what threats really need to be paid attention to. There's certainly a school of thought that the defensive benefits of AI are going to outweigh the risks of it. And so I think you'll see that conversation had in a lot of different ways in September.
So, great topic. It's going to be obviously front and center there. So in terms of speakers, it's been a tough year for conferences, in-person conferences. But looking at your agenda, you've got so many government speakers. And you mentioned before, right? They're mostly senior leadership. Do you think that's part of the reason why you're having such a high rate of success of getting speakers to participate in a year? Candidly, that's been very tough to get folks to be able to show up to these types of events.
Yeah. Well, let's both knock wood and cross our fingers and not jinx any
fair
of this.
enough.
But,
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's. We work very hard at that. I think there are parts of when our summit takes place in the year, and the fact that it's here in DC, all of those just operationally play to our favor. But look, Billington's been convening the cybersecurity community for, this will be the 16th year of the federal summit. We work with the career folks at all levels of government, and have for years running. And there's a lot of turnover with the Trump administration, but we've been working to build those relationships this year. And there's a lot of key players who were there in the first Trump administration, where it's a kind of reconnection going on. So yeah, there's been churn. I think our team's done a fantastic job, and would tell you they've probably worked 50 to 100% harder to get the speakers, the same number of speakers. It's taking twice as much effort for each speaker, just as everyone's navigating just the change that comes with any change in administration, and then the broader politics and conversation. So some of it's us working hard, some of it is us and our our history and legacy on things, and some of it just speaks to the fact of how important cyber is and how nonpartisan cyber is. And people recognize that this is a conversation that needs to happen. So we're happy and grateful to be able to facilitate it.
So 200 speakers. I think I have 40 plus sessions. What are some of the keynotes? Can't miss sessions. Again, I know that you can't pick favorites, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the highlights that you can share with
all our children,
folks watching
on this?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're really excited to to have General Kane, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as one of our keynotes. We have people that I think are familiar, more familiar to a lot of people who follow cyber closely. Whether it's Katie Arrington at DoD, whether it's the leadership of CISA coming in. But I think of those keynotes, I think General Kane is super exciting. Having Sean Cairncross coming in is going to be very exciting for us. And then I don't think we have enough time to get into this particular panel. So there are some really interesting ones on the intersection of sort of traditional cyber and IT versus OT cybersecurity.
Of course.
Getting the critical infrastructure conversation woven into this. I think in years past we kind of said, oh, here's one session over here, and you'll see on the program there's stuff about what does this mean for water systems? What does this mean for the energy grid? What does this mean? How is cyber playing into the world of border security? And just really kind of spotlighting that it's hard, if not impossible, to find a critical government mission where cybersecurity doesn't need to be a first-order question.
Yeah, and I guess, and of course, all the sessions and the agenda are on the website.
Correct.
That we'll point folks to.
Yeah.
Fireside chats.
Yeah.
Can you talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the idea there is really to get the senior-most leaders to come in and be able to share their vision of where things are going. They're short. They're like 20, 25-minute conversations. And that's where General Kane will be speaking. Some of the others that I mentioned it's not a keynote. It is a conversation, but it's a conversation that's really to have a chance to kind of just give their take on the big picture cyber landscape. And what we try and do is use those to tee up the bigger themes, and then in the panel discussions on the main stage and the breakout sessions, those speakers are kind of taking those ideas and running with them. I mean, it's not a literally orchestrated thing of, okay, we're going to have a panel to respond to what Fireside Chat Speaker X had to say. But if you look at the agenda, you can see that the themes of the firesides flow through the themes for the breakout tracks. And so if you're interested in identity management, if you're interested in operational technology, if you're interested in how AI is impacting cyber, or whatever version of the zero trust efforts we're to now, there's a full 3 to 5 days of content for you there.
You mentioned the Supply Chain Summit and the AI Summit.
Yeah.
And I've already had some folks even ask me about these things, about how did that happen? How did those? Can you dive into those for a couple of minutes?
Sure. I mean,
what they're about and how people can attend those.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, let's address the obvious business side first. But like Billington has lots of sponsors. It's how we pay our bills and how we're able to put this on. And sponsors participate in a lot of our programs. But in this case, Lineage and Microsoft have both been partners with us for multiple years now, and in both of those cases, we were just having conversations with the business leaders at those organizations, and they were saying, "Oh, we want to really dive deep on this and go." And in one case, it started as, "Could you help us put on our own event some other time in Washington?" And as we spitballed what made sense, we're like, "Why not just do it under the umbrella? You've already got 3,000 plus people coming here." There's a critical mass. There's just economies of scale on the attendees, the speakers, the venue, all the things that make putting on an event hard. And so it's something we're trying to do at Billington, is not only say come and see our programming, but I hesitate to use words like festival or expo. We're not looking to be South by Southwest here, but the idea that there can be lots of different communities of interest coming and gathering, and you'll see that in other places at the summit, which I can come back to. But in these cases, it was just what you hope happens in this community, which is partners and colleagues talking about how can we better get our message out, and how can we better serve these communities of interest. And the two programs, they're very different in sort of structure and size, but they're both with that same aim of like, who are the people that we need to get in a room and have these important conversations, and how can we effectively do it? And they're definitely kind of test cases for how this works, and we'll all learn from it. And anyone who's asking you, I'd love to talk to them about what do we do next year and beyond. Yeah,
well, obviously there are topics that are front and center for just about everybody. When do those take place, and how long are they? Sure.
So the Software Supply Chain Security Forum is taking place on Thursday. It is, it's a Lineage-sponsored event under the Billington umbrella. Like structurally, it really looks like a dedicated breakout track on Thursday, and it's the only breakout track that's happening on Thursday. The Microsoft program is happening on Friday as part of our AI Friday programming. We've got our main stage. There's a fireside, a couple, a panel discussion, and then a couple sort of more tactical workshops that are happening that are open to all the summit attendees. And then, Microsoft is working with Billington to produce a separate, almost like roundtable session for a couple hours. That'll be 40 to 60 people in the room talking at a high level about the intersection of AI and cyber for federal leaders.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, moving on, let's talk about some of the networking opportunities that take place, because there's an abundance of them, and I know there's some VIP opportunities and so forth. So what can people look forward to doing kind of off the show floor and not in sessions?
Absolutely. So one of the things that makes the Billington Summit a little unique is the VIP receptions that we do. And those are invite only. They're for our speakers. They're for top sponsors. So I feel a little bad talking too much about them. It's like, here's the thing that some of you aren't invited to, but we do those with the embassies of several key allied nations. This year all Five Eyes nations. So we've got a VIP reception at the Australian embassy. We've got a VIP reception at the Canadian embassy, and we've got a VIP reception at the British ambassador's residence. So those happen in the evenings of the first 3 nights of the summit, and there's programming at those too. We have a couple of key government leaders, sometimes people who are doing our fireside chats, sometimes other officials, both U.S. and international. We have the top cyber leadership from Canada, Great Britain, Australia, all participating in the summit, as well as from several other key nations. Key cyber leaders from Poland, from Ukraine, from Estonia. So there's there is that international flair, but they're really about the high-level networking. It'll be 100 to 200 people for a cocktail party, informal conversations. 15 minutes of key remarks from those key leaders. But it's just a chance to have the hallway conversations where where the good ideas tend to germinate. So that's that's the fancy part of it. We've got all attendee receptions that happen on Tuesday and Wednesday on site at the event. Those are taking place, in the exhibit hall. All who are coming to the summit are welcome. Bigger aperture there, but same goal. It's a chance to kind of follow up on the connections you made during the day and really have a more personal conversation there. And then there are unofficial events happening. I know a couple key partners are doing doing their own gatherings on site. In the private meeting rooms that they have at the summit. And there are we're not quite to RSA level here, but there are several organizations that I know are doing their own dinners or happy hours at bars and restaurants around. So there's definitely the party and the social aspect of it and the business networking that comes with it that's happening really from Monday evening through Thursday evening at the summit. And then there's, the meetings are a big part of this. Some of our top partners don't even opt to do a booth in the exhibit hall because not because they don't find the exhibit hall useful, but because they want to focus their time and their dollar investment on the one-on-one meetings that they can set up through their conversations. So we've got a lot of private meeting space, a lot of shared meeting space for top partners. You're going to see a lot of people ducking off to various nooks for everything from the one-on-one conversations you have at any event to full-blown demos or kind of informal happy hours that are happening in those rooms around the summit. And we'll be doing our best to make sure that when they're open to all, that we're including that in the agenda and the mobile app for the summit, so people know what they can get. Last thing on that I didn't mention, and this is new this year. You asked what's different at the summit. Is we've got an innovation stage in the exhibit hall. What happens on the main stage and what happens in the breakout tracks has always been sort of the real DNA of the Billington Summit. That content and conversations is what drives the whole event. But there's the need for different types of presentations and different types of interaction. So this is it's a stage that's a little bit more freeform in its programming. Not that it won't be scheduled, but we don't do training sessions there, but and we don't do kind of working group conversations at any scale. But NIST is going to come in and use the innovation stage to talk about the AI risk management framework and really have a kind of an Ask Me Anything session there on that stage. I think DIU is coming in to talk about their industry engagement efforts. So it's a chance to do, like a press gaggle for one of our speakers. It's a chance to do a follow-up Q&A session for panelists from a given breakout where they wanted to continue the conversation afterwards. And we'll have things blocked out, but there'll also be a fair amount of ad hoc stuff happening on that stage. We're recognizing that, the programming is super important, but we need to give people room to have the conversations that they want to have at the summit. And because making those connections is really why we're all there.
So you mentioned RSA. I wonder if Billington at RSA, a smaller event, could be something in the future. But in terms of the press, one of the things in the past I've seen, I'm a PR guy, is a lot of press attendance at this event. What does that look like this year? And do you anticipate another pretty big turnout for the press
we certainly do. I certainly hope so, and all signs point to that. As you know, the press register and confirm for things even later than the rest of us. But there's already somewhere in the 35 to 40 media registered from both the the trade pubs from our community that we know and work with almost every day, and then the big guys too. We historically we get the people who cover cyber from the major television networks, from the New York Times, Wall Street Journals, those worlds, and then of course all the DC focused gov technology media outlets. So yeah, we expect a strong contingent. There'll be a dedicated press room there on site, and and we're certainly encouraging our speakers to do the rest, to make news from the stage and to make themselves available. So a lot of that will be you and I having calls at odd hours 5 days before the summit happens as we figure out the details. But it's a big part of it.
Okay. If I'm an exhibitor today,
yep.
What advice would you give them going into this event? Is there anything that they should be kind of doing in prep for in
Absolutely.
3 weeks?
Absolutely. It is, do your homework about the event. Know who's speaking on what sessions, where you want to go. Your booth is really important, but if your engagement strategy is to stand at the booth and talk to whoever walks by, you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. And that applies everywhere.
Yeah.
But so it's making sure you're bringing enough people that you can be manning the booth to receive people who come to you, but also going out and walking the rest of the floor, going to sessions, connecting with people out there. At a pure tactical sponsor level, all the sponsors, they can do booth scanning from their own phone.
Right.
It's not like there's a single badge scanner that's tied to the booth to do this stuff. So you can meet people, you can capture those leads anywhere throughout the summit. And then the other is give people a reason to want to come talk to you. The government audience is different than the big commercial trade show audience. There's only so much that that like the marketing tchotchkes are going to do to entice senior level government officials with real purchasing authority to come by your booth. We all have enough branded socks at this point, and but we have sponsors that are looking to schedule real trainings. There are things that probably do attract a little bit more attention. We had sponsors at our state and local summit who did, who raffled off a nice bottle of whiskey or had a little informal coffee conversation there. So finding incentives and getting that message out, and knowing that the Billington team can sort of help communicate that through the mobile app, because we want people to know who they should talk to and why.
It sounds like you guys are willing to work with the exhibitors too.
Absolutely.
To do some creative things that help them stand out. So
Absolutely.
That's good to know.
Our first goal is always to make sure that it is the best possible experience for the attendees. And so, we're not going to work with sponsors on things that ultimately make the attendees feel like they're being carpet bombed with text messages or what have you. But yeah, we want to do everything we can to be good hosts and facilitate this engagement. And we're learning, the Billington event is dramatically bigger now than it's going to be 20 to 25% bigger this year than last year. And you go back 2 or 3 years, it's more than doubled in size.
Sure.
So we're still learning how to best do this at the scale that we're growing to. And, and back to the those custom content programs, we don't have all the deals. I wish I had sat down 6 months ago and said, here are things we can put on the menu of offerings.
Yeah.
But that came from our sponsors and partners coming up with the ideas. So we want to have these brainstorms and figure out what to do.
You're willing to collaborate.
Absolutely.
So let's wrap this up with some selling.
Yeah.
So if they're not an exhibitor and you want to be an exhibitor, is it too late?
There's still time, but it's moving fast.
Yeah.
So, the summit starts on September 9th. We're getting to the point where we're about to print signs and do all this, but there's, I think it's single-digit number of booth spaces left in the exhibit hall. We'll always work with partners to get passes, get them on the logo board, do those things. We're pretty much out of time for anyone who wanted a speaking role, the program's set and done. I think, and by the time this airs, that door will have closed. But but yeah, still time to get in as a sponsor, get the recognition, get access to the opt-in reg list if you're at that tier. And it's not too late to be talking about our state and local event, which comes in March, and the planning for next year. We'll be rebooking our sponsors on site for the 17th Summit, which will be at the Convention Center again next September. And then one thing that I need to do a better job of including in these conversations is making clear that Billington, with most of our partners, it's a full year engagement. There are people who come and say, great, I'd like 2 passes, I'd like a booth, I want to go, that's great. But our biggest partners and where the most value comes is at that gold and above level. And that's where the speaking opportunities kick in, but it's also where our leadership council kicks in. And that's a membership that gets that partner access to these small group events that we do about once a month throughout the year, where we'll bring in a senior official for a Chatham House rule conversation. So it's not classified. There's 25 to 40 people in the room, but it is small enough to have a really candid discussion and to get the direct one-on-one conversations and really get to know others in the community, really get to know what the leaders at different key government agencies are looking at and prioritizing for the coming year, and just a chance to get your message out. So people who are coming on at this 11th hour, yes, you've missed some of the runway for the summit.
Sure.
But we've got Leadership Council breakfast in September, October, November of this year, and then we're ramping up for next year right away. So we're happy to talk to people.
Sure.
365 days out
of course, of course. Well, that's fantastic. Well, listen, Troy, I think we're out of time, but appreciate you coming in studio and talking with me about all the goodness. And obviously you'll be running around, so folks see you there. You're one of the most approachable people I know. So certainly, and if they don't see you, they can see you on stage.
They can see me on stage.
Playing the bass.
They can not at the summit. Let's be clear about that. But
we have to fix that.
But yeah, we will. By all means, reach out to us. Come say hi at the summit, and love to do it. But again, thanks again for having me today. Great conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Troy.
All right, appreciate it.